Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Pain to Change with Dr. Clarice. I am Dr. Clarice, and I am excited. I am more than excited. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here tonight with three amazing women. Amazing women. Not only are they breast cancer survivors, they're warriors, they're advocates. They're using everything they can to help facilitate to knock out breast cancer and to let people know the life you saved could very well be your own. So we're going to start with a woman that is totally courageous. All of them are really courageous, but the reason why I say Big Jacqueline Jeter is because when I asked her, I've asked many, many women who are breast cancer survivors, would they mind coming on my podcast and sharing their story? And all I've ever heard was, well, I'm really not ready. I don't know, maybe next time. Well, I really don't want to talk about it. But I asked her after a podcast we did about a month or so ago, because I didn't know she was a breast cancer survivor. So she's telling her story. I'm like, all I'm thinking is, I'm going to ask her. After this podcast, I asked her, and she was like, absolutely. And I'm going to bring some people too. Oh, okay. So I want to say thank you, B. Jacqueline Jeter, because it's women like you and Dr. Shabelta and Thaleen that make a difference. That make a difference. So without any further ado, we're going to start with B. Jacqueline. And I'm going to ask you all the same questions. And we're going to start with hello. And so walk me through your moment in time of how you found out you had breast cancer and what happened next in terms of staging, your feelings, your treatment. Please.
Well, first, thank you, Dr. Clarice, for having a passion to share about breast cancer. Because there's a lot of statistics out there that we all can tell you about, and you can read in the ether. But when you walk through those statistics, it's totally different because you think of, am I going to be one of these or one of those? But I am B. Jacqueline Jeter. I am a actual pharmaceutical development scientist by career, and so I had a sister. I have two sisters that passed from breast cancer. One was in her 70s and one was at 49. And so my doctors were thinking it's linked to my father's side. But what happened was that I was very adamant and very sensitive about ensuring that I was doing my breast exams. And so one morning I got up and my right breast, it wasn't sore, it hurt. There was a pain. When I got in the shower and the water hit it, it was like, it hurt. I thought that's kind of strange. And so I was doing my breast exam and I felt this bubble-like feel. And at first, science mind kicks in. I'm thinking, oh, maybe one of my memory glands or some gland is like probably clogged up. That's what that is, and blah, blah, blah. And so, but it only hurt for like 2.5 days. And I knew I had a mammogram coming up like that next week. And so they had called to confirm the mammogram. And she said, have you had any changes since last time? And I said, not really any major changes, but I told her about that. She goes, we're going to cancel it. You see your doctor, and then she'll be able to tell us what type of mammogram you need, meaning diagnostic, which is a 3D mammogram with ultrasound. And I was like, okay. And so by just God's providence, I also had already scheduled a full head to toe physical I do every year with my PCP. And I have a great relationship with my physicians. And so I saw her and she felt that weird spot. And she's like, and you didn't feel it when I was lying. And when my arm was up or when I was lying down, it was only when my breast was resting. You could only feel it's a bubble. And they tell you, like, when you're doing your exam, feel for pee size, hard places. Well, I didn't have that in my breast. I did have like a little harding, a little space right here, like under my arm, like the axillary area. But again, I worked out every day. I ate very relatively healthy. You have some cheat days here and there. So I've been working out every day except for Sunday. Had trainers, and I had a really big, my trainer had a crazy moment where I think she was trying to kill me. But and I thought I was just sore, and my muscles were just sore, and it was just like a just soreness there because I hadn't really felt that before. So fast forward, saw my doctor, and she says, "Yeah, I'll just order, a ultrasound, a diagnostic mammogram." She did that. I went and got that. They're like, "Well, but we'll let you know if you have to have the ultrasound." So I said, "Yeah, something. It's kind of a shadow, something the doctor wants to further look at." And so I'm lying on the table, and he says, "This is all happening within a couple of weeks because I saw her on August 4th. I was diagnosed on August 26th." So it was just crazy how things just move by so fast. And so when the radiologist doctor came in, he said, "Yeah, it could be this, it could be that. He is suspicious, and I do want to do a biopsy." And so scientific brain, I'm like, "Well, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be these kind of manifestations? Could it be?" He's like, "We don't know," because I asked a lot of questions anyway. He said, "We don't know." So we did the biopsy, and it came back. They did the biopsy like the next week. Everything moved back really fast, and they said it'll take 3 to 5 days. They called me the next day, and the nurse navigator says, "We got your biopsy results back." And I said, "Okay, great." And I'm sitting on the sofa, and my sweetie's there, and she said it shows invasive ductal carcinoma with metastasis to your lymph node. And that's what happened. I was just like, "Are you talking to me?" So for like 30 minutes, I had planned my funeral, my memorial service. I had done all my legal stuff. I had said goodbyes, all in my head. I just like, God, I can't die. I got too much to do. Why is this happening to me? Why? I went that whole minute for 30 minutes. And then my sweetie said, "Babe, all you do, what you know is what's going on. It doesn't mean it's over." Because we had hung with the nurse navigators. "Just call me back." She said, "It happens all the time." So I sat there, I started Googling, and I had my questions ready. What's the size? What's the stage? What's this? What's that? Is it a fish? What's the fish? What's this number? What's that number? She's like, this is preliminary. Your doctor will call you later and go over more in detail with you, but there's not many detail we have because pathology reports are done in stages. So you get the first stage, you get second, and they do more testing of everything. So she goes, "Well, it is small." And I was like, "Okay, man." So I was like, as a
Right.
spread.
Well, that's good news, right?
Yeah. And so
Small is good. In some cases, it's good. Some other cases, it's not that
yeah, I
good.
was just like, she said small, and even though it's an acid, but it's metastasized in lymph nodes, it's going anywhere else. I mean, I had these questions. Is it my bone? Is it this? She goes, "We don't know that. You're going to have additional testing." So my doctor called me about 8:30 that night. She says, "I'm sorry for calling you so late," but I kept looking at the paperwork saying, "Is this the same person?" I said, "What was in my labs?" She's like, "Nothing showed in your labs. The only thing that I prescribed for you was vitamin D because one, you're a woman over 50. I'm 56. You're a woman over 50. You're a woman, you're over 50, and you're African American." She's all women at that age need vitamin D. She's especially African Americans. It's because of absorption and blah blah. She's that's the only reason. All your labs are normal. They're actually great. And so it just didn't make any sense. And so, but after that 30 minutes, I was in scientist mode, researching this and that, and I was praying. I started declaring, and Holy Spirit took me back to a moment about 2 weeks before the soreness in my breast came. I work from home, and I was sitting in an actual meeting, and I just had this. It was one of those seminar things you can walk away and come back and you've missed nothing. And so I just was watching the construction behind my house, and I remember laying my hands on my head and my body and just praying. It just hit me out of the blue that anything in my body, any interloper that's in my body that I don't know about, God, bring it to light. Any renegade cells, bring them into subjection, and that they are performing the way you created them, and if they are not, expose them. And then boom. So our words have power. So when that happened, God's like, he took me back, "Didn't you say to expose the interloper cells?" I was like, "I did, didn't I?" So, but my journey has been, I'll say different. I've had excellent care because I said, "Okay, Lord, if we're going to do this, and we are, I want the best physicians, nurses, technicians, whomever touches this jewel or body you made, I want the best." And he has honored that. The only other pain I've ever had through this journey was when I had a kidney stone about 2.5 months ago. And if you had a kidney stone, it's crazy. If you haven't, just pray to God you never get one.
Oh,
It's just like
wow.
I was gonna die. I mean, that's the worst pain I've ever had in my life ever. So, and it was, it was a short-lived kind of experience, but still, it was enough pain for that. But I haven't had any pain, and my doctor's like, "You don't have any pain? You're fine with this?" Because again, as a scientist, I had to go through I'm at UNC Rex Healthcare. Like I said, excellent. The physicians I have, when I had my port put in, the nurses were like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? Let's see who we're working with today." They're like, "You must be VIP. Your surgeon is the best surgeon we have in this system. Who's your oncologist?" You're like, "Oh, you're a VIP. You have one of the best oncologists here in this area." I was like, "Good looking out." So I pre-prayed
Wow.
everything. So when I went through this, I had to go through a 4-hour cancer education class where they tell you about every drug. And I do oncology research, so some of them I already knew, all the side effects, all those things. And so my prayer circle was tight, and I was like, "We're praying against this, that this don't happen, this don't happen," and everything we prayed against, all those side effects, I didn't have. So prayer is powerful because yes, I had to go through this. The weapon was formed, but it didn't prosper. So I'm just grateful to God for that experience. And I'll stop talking. I could talk about this all night, really, because it's just been. I always say this is my equipping place, and that is the name of my book coming out later. Shameless plug, but this has been something that I was like, "Lord, why me?" And He says, "I said, why now? Is there a better time?" So I had to change my language and say, "I get to go through this." There are a lot of women who don't get to go through this.
I
I
love
get to
that.
go
Is it a
through
better shot? Right.
I get to go through this. I get to lose my 3 feet of hair because I had really long hair and I cut my hair because I didn't want to. You have to take control of everything, your mental, your emotional. If you don't, I knew I couldn't get up one day and see a big long strand of hair on a pillow. It would have sent me in a different state. So I just cut my hair off. And then it eventually came, the rest of it came out. But when it came out, this is the beautiful part of that. When it was cut down like scissor over comb, kind of like it is now, when the rest of it came out and I was literally bald, I didn't see that. It didn't like I didn't see it in a brush. I didn't see it on the pillow. I never saw it. So He shielded me from that. So like I said, I can talk about this all night. So I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but it's just I'm not saying it's been a joyful experience, but it's been a very equipping experience for my life and my faith. My faith went deeper. My relationship with God was even more purified. We were talking about this before about I had no intention of sharing anything on Facebook, and we were sitting outside on October 5th, 2021, outside the facility waiting to go in because it was closed. I had an early morning. It was my first chemo, and we got there early, so they weren't open yet. And it was a Tuesday because all my appointments were on Tuesday. And so when I was sitting outside the facility, I always did it's called His Raindrops. It was a video blog, and it was called Triumphant Tuesday. And I'm the encouragement ambassador, helping you see triumph in all things, no matter what you're going through. That was been my moniker for the past 3 years. And it's been put to the test. And so Holy Spirit was like, "It's Triumphant Tuesday." I'm like, "I know." We went back and forth in this conversation in my spirit. And I was like, I get a video. And so many people were like, "This has empowered me," who didn't have cancer. They were empowered in their situation. People who had cancer or were dealing with it were empowered in that situation. So we have to use our voice. Like you said, it was hard for you to get people to come on. And I just want to speak to anyone out there who's dealing with cancer or has dealt with it. Please share because it's in our testimony. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. If we didn't share our word, I wouldn't know Thaleen. I wouldn't know Dr. Chevelta. I wouldn't know half the people I've met around the world who have reached out and said, "Your story has empowered me." Not giving any glory to me, all glory to God, but it's just that we have to use our voice. A voice at the right frequency can shatter glass. What is your voice going to shatter in somebody else's life that needs to be shattered? So that's what I always say. I get to go through this because there's countless of women and men, but countless women who don't get to go through chemo, who don't get to go through the situation, who can't make it through chemo. I went through 6 rounds of chemo, and I really didn't have any major manifestations of things. I mean, I have some neuropathy right now, and I had some flex left when they took out the tumors. I had treatment first. It's called neoadjunctive. So I had treatment first to shrink the tumor in my breast and right there in my lymph node, because that was a tumor there. And if there's anything called residual disease, even if it's like a millimeter fleck, and that's what they had in one of the lymph nodes, you go on a different drug. But I haven't had any situations for that. So the only thing I went through in that space was knowing also the side effects of drugs. One of them caused diarrhea. And I told my doctor, I said, "I'm very regular. So if this causes diarrhea, we got to watch this." And she's a researcher. She's brilliant. She's amazing. as well. She goes, we'll do that. For the first week of chemo, I lost 21 pounds because I was so dehydrated. I couldn't keep anything in my system. I had to, so that was a plus because I was trying to lose weight anyway. So I look at that as a plus. So those kind of things, knowing those pieces and knowing those things and knowing your body is so important. I could have just ignored that pain. It wasn't soreness, it was pain. And I may not be here today because I was diagnosed with stage 1B, HER2 positive. And that means you have high estrogen. And so um, it can be aggressive. So I may not be here today if I just ignored that. And so it's important that we actually know our bodies and do something about it, and not say, because we as women will say, oh, just the pain, I'll get that later. I got to take Johnny to this. I got to do this for this person, do this for that person. We put ourselves last. Put yourself first so that you can be here to help Johnny and Susie and whomever else. So just knowing your body is very important. So I'll stop right there and I'll share some more of the journey in a minute.
Well, and thank you. And I mean, you if you could feel my heart right now, it's like because I felt everything you were saying. It was like I was like experiencing it. And I did something 2 weeks ago, and and I did a pop-up podcast, and it was called "Listen to Your Body and Save Your Own Life." Listen to your body. Your body has been with you since you were born. That you just met the doctor. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Let's keep it real, right?
They don't
If
tell you if you listen
if
to it.
if you had not, if you had ignored the pain and took
Mhm.
some Tylenol, I mean, you hear these stories all the time. You hear these stories all the time about how people just, well, I was, and then what happens is we want to blame our lack of health care on other people when it's our own inability to listen to our own bodies. And by the time we get to doctors, it's really sometimes too late. And as we all know, we hear those stories as African Americans constantly.
Constantly.
So thank you for sharing. We'll be back. We'll come back to you. So now we're going to Dr. Shabelta, and she's going to walk us through her journey. Like, where was she when she got diagnosed? What did it feel like? What was her treatment? How was the stage? And her advocacy, and where are we now? Take it away, Dr. Shabelton. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello to the ladies here. B. Jacqueline, my girl, and hi, Thaleen. How are you? And to everybody who's tuning in, I am Dr. Shavelta Smith. I'm a board certified obstetrician and gynecologist. I am the founder of the faith based cancer group called Boots on the Ground Pink Battalion. And I have many other things that I do, but I'm most proud of those two things because it's really making a difference in other people's lives. So I'm happy about that. Um, I was actually in the car. I was diagnosed November the 8th of 2021 with triple negative breast cancer. Where mine differs from Barbara's is that uh, the type of breast cancer I was diagnosed with is triple negative, meaning that it does not have estrogen receptors, it does not have progesterone receptors, and it does not have the protein called HER2, which is a human epidermal growth factor. And that's a protein that if the cancer cell usually will duplicate copies of that, it increases the risk or it increases the cells for breast cancer. And so the, that triple negative breast cancer is actually considered a very aggressive. It grows very quickly and it doesn't always have the best outcome. And it also has a higher risk of recurrence. So I am driving in the car. I'm following my daughter to the Firestone to take her her car to get it fixed. And I get a phone call from a biopsy. I had felt a lump in my breast back in September. Um, it felt hard. I had lumps in my breast before, but this one felt different. So I started kind of doing the same thing that B. Jacqueline was talking about, which is, we're fact finders. She and I, we are fact finders. So we will go and find some facts through research and whatever else. So I kind of already knew because as a OBGYN, I'm doing exams on women. I'm finding lumps in their breast. I'm sending them for mammograms, diagnostic, or screening. And I'm often telling them, for those that do have a breast cancer, that you have a breast cancer. So knowing 1 in 8, we have a family thread that we all come together in my family for prayer every Sunday morning. So I counted how many women were active on the family thread. Well, there was 8. And I know that 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. So I said, okay, it's 1 in 8, and I got a lump in my breast that feels different. So I begin to kind of prepare myself that I am probably that one. I felt it. I kind of sensed it, but I didn't really know for sure. So I was just kind of waiting, but I was already doing the statistics in my head. And so by the time I got that phone call, I actually said to my doctor, I remember because she asked me, was it a good time? And I said, well, I'm just driving, doing some errands, with my daughter. And she said, okay. She said, is it okay to talk? I said, yeah. I said, you got good news for me? And I remember her saying, well, I have news. And so I was like, okay, I still wasn't, I didn't know that she was going to say what she said. So she said, you have invasive ductal carcinoma. And I heard it. And when I heard it, I remember everything. It wasn't like some people say it's in slow motion. It wasn't slow motion per se, but there was almost like some kind of pause where it seemed like stuff slowed down. And then all of a sudden, I heard her say, "Are you okay?" And it was almost like everything fast forward real quick. And I said, "Yes, I'm fine." And so within a probably less than a minute, I had pulled up into the Firestone. I had called my family on the FaceTime, told everybody, and I was real stoic, letting everybody know. And in the middle of telling everybody, tears started coming down my eyes. It was the reality that I was about to walk a journey that I knew is a very challenging journey. And, but I didn't want anybody else in my family. I was actually, I understood what B. Jacqueline was saying, because it's not something that you wish for or something that you want. But when I received the diagnosis, I was grateful it was me versus any of the other women in my family. I wouldn't want my sister or my mom or whatever. I knew what that could look like from being a gynecologist. So I was grateful that it was me. And the Lord immediately brought back to my mind that in April, He had sent me to a retreat with women that I had never met in person and had just met on this app called Clubhouse. And so during the retreat, the last day, they were praying for women. And as they were praying, they then began to pray for me, and they began to say some things that they felt the Lord wanted me to know. And within it, they started saying, the Lord said, you're going to live a long time and you're going to have longevity of life. And at first, I was kind of like, what does that have to do right now with what we're talking about? But I was like, okay, I received it. And so the Lord brought it back to my remembrance. And then it was almost like He was letting me know, I gave you that word then for now. And so I walked through the journey. I am a very transparent person, but I hadn't planned to share my journey. That to me was just like, okay, this is my journey. And I had about 3 or 4 people, including my sister, that actually said, hey, I just want you to pray about it, but I really believe that God is saying that you are supposed to make your journey public. And I was like, okay, I'll pray about it. And within 2 weeks, I heard it myself, because for 2 weeks I wasn't doing nothing because I didn't hear anything. And then I heard the same thing. And so I started the Facebook group, Boots on the Ground Pink Battalion, and I made it private because I wasn't still sure. Okay, he said public, but does it have to be public, or can it be private?
Not real
Okay.
public. Not
Yeah.
not real public.
I was like, so I made it private, and then I'm an influencer also, so I have an IG, and so I did some public stuff on my Instagram, and it was really just, it was God. I mean, He walked. I was determined on my journey. I didn't have any fear. I never had fear. I never thought like, oh my God, why me? For me personally, I just didn't have that. I have always been a fighter. So what came back to my mind was Job. So I kept feeling like for so long, because my husband and I are pastors, we've been, you talk to people and you're telling people about having faith, you be praying for them and laying hands on them when they're going through stuff. So what came to me was you're up. That was what came to me. You've been doing all this, so so you up. So I felt like, oh, I'm up. Oh, I'm up now. Oh, the enemy asked about me. Oh, I'm up. Oh, okay, it's on now. So that was the attitude I went in with. That I know I'm coming out. I'm not sure what to expect. I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm up now, and so I need to let him know, the enemy, that I'm faithful to God, and I know that He's going to bring me through. So doesn't mean I didn't have days where I was in pain. It doesn't mean I didn't have days where I was crying because of pain. My faith was strong and I didn't waver in that, but it's a challenging journey. So the support of family, the support of friends. I think the most challenging thing for me was I'm a type A personality. So, I need to, I need to know what's going on, and I need to navigate. I got to have a little bit, I got to feel like I'm in control of some things. I don't have to be in control, but I gotta, and
Right.
I remember having a breakdown and just crying because I was so mad that I didn't have any options. Triple negative breast cancer, because it is triple negative, it is lacking in receptors for, these various things. The treatment is limited. And so everything that I kept thinking of and asking about, I couldn't do. They don't have hormonal therapy for triple negative breast cancer because there's no hormone receptors that you're going after. There's no HER2, there's no protein, so they can't make a targeted treatment for it. So it's chemotherapy and it's surgery and maybe radiation. And so I was very frustrated with that. I was very angry with that because I didn't want to do chemotherapy. And I was more upset. I got upset with the USA because over in Europe, they have choices that we don't have here. We're very pharmaceutically based, and I was upset with that because I began to understand. Okay, I get it. We got pharmaceuticals, but guess what? This is chemo, and you may be trying to kill my cancer, but what else are you doing to my tissue? And so I was so angry with our lack in the U.S. of really giving other alternatives that have been shown to have good effects, right? I'm not talking about the woo-woo, foo-foo. I'm talking about things where there is literature, there is data for naturopathic ways. There are licensed naturopathic physicians. But most of the time, as conventional physicians, including myself, we go to school, and what we get is research and studies that are often based on pharmaceutical drugs. And then from that, we counsel our patients based on these studies. And so we are not trained about natural ways of healing ourselves and how to stay in good health. Most of the time, the focus is on disease treatment, not always on prevention. We're starting to move into that a little bit more with preventative things, but still at a disproportionate level than disease treatment, right? So I was very angry and frustrated with that because I didn't feel like I had any choice, but I knew that God was leading me through it. So I was supposed to have 24 rounds or 24 weeks of chemo, which was 8 cycles. And I wind up having 6. I wind up not having 6 consecutive because I had some issues with my white blood cell count. I was in the hospital for 9 days. I was in the hospital for 9 days making IG reels, okay? Standing up on the bed, sliding down the hallways on IV poles. I mean, I was doing a whole lot of stuff. I'd have a fever of 103, and I'd be in the bed, and they'd be having ice packs all over me. And then when the fever would break, an hour later, I'd be like, I'm making a reel. I got to make a reel about it. and that was how I did it. You know, humor, gratitude, a lot of things. I'm a resilience trainer. I will actually be a certified resilience trainer in December. So there was a lot of resiliency tools that I understood were just as important as having faith to help me heal through this process and to keep my mind in the right spot. And so I implemented a lot of these things. I had family, I had friends, and I was determined that the cancer was not going to control my life. Now, that was, I can't speak for anybody else, but that's where I was. This shall not control my life. My life is directed by God. So whatever I can do, I'm going to do. If I have a day where I'm in pain, okay, I'm going to get through that. But you best rest assured, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep moving. And that was the mindset that I had. When I lost my hair, I did a photo shoot. And I pretended, I said, listen, I don't need anybody to give me a runway. I will create my own runway and let people know that whether I have hair or not, I'm still beautiful in God's sight, right? I may not look beautiful to somebody else. That's okay. But it is so important that you keep your mind in a positive place when you're walking these journeys, because we have literature and data that show that sometimes your outcome can be negative, not necessarily because that was going to be the progression, but because of how your mind was thinking. That now your mind, because you gave up, because you were thinking negative and not positive, it then caused things to progress. And so these were kind of the things that I went through. So for myself personally, I did multiple consultations. I recommend people always do multiple consultations. I took a pause because on the day I found out, within a couple of hours, they had me in front of the breast surgeon. Then they had me in front of the geneticist. And then they had me scheduled for my port to be put in the next week. And then chemo was going to start the following week. So I left out with all of that, but I still hadn't really processed everything. And so I wind up taking a pause, and I called back and I said, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I haven't had my other consults and all this and that. And so, I need a moment to do that. And that's what I did. I got other consultations. One of them also included a licensed naturopathic physician. I did an integrative approach. I did both conventional and I did integrative medicine with Dr. Sam Price, who's amazing. And that's what I did. And so God healed me. I declared healing throughout my entire journey. I don't know how he's going to do it, but he is going to heal me. And after 6 inconsistent weeks of chemo, they had to take me off of the medicine because I prayed. I said, Lord, if it ain't your will, take me off this medicine. Don't let me do it, because then they're going to write I'm non-compliant. Because I know how we doctors do it. We be like non-compliant, patient refusing. And I said, so you do it. So he landed me in the hospital. And when I came out, they took me off of 2 of the medicines. I had some peripheral neuropathy that was mild that they were monitoring me for. So they started me on the one medicine that was left. And then the neuropathy got worse. And I said, oh, no. After I need my fingers. And he said, oh, we got to take you off of that. And so they wanted to put me on some more. And I said, well, what's the side effects of that? Is it the same thing that just landed me in the hospital with lowering my white count? And he said, yeah, it could be. Doesn't mean it will happen. And I said, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't know if I want to do that. And so I think I want to go to surgery. And so against their advice, because they still saw the mass in my breast, I prayed and I asked God to direct me, and he did. And so I opted to go to surgery. And when we went to surgery, she came out and told my husband she couldn't find the lump. Now, they saw the lump on Friday because they had to put the seed inside to find it in the surgery. And 3 days later, which was a Monday, is when I had my surgery. They couldn't find it. And when my path report came back, There was no cancer that was there at all. And my lymph nodes were clear. So that is my story. And those are some of the things that I got out of that story that I like to share with people. And I'll probably share a little bit more later, because I think it's important that people take a moment to really make sure that they figure out what is going to be best for them, not what people are making you do, or you feel maybe like people are making you do. I think we have to be careful that we don't do things out of fear. And sometimes we don't take a moment to research and to get other consultations and to know what options you really have, because we hear the C word and all of a sudden we're like, and then we just, whatever, I'm doing it right now, and thinking that something's going to happen that very next day. And so we do things out of fear. And I think anything out of fear, I don't care whether it's helpful or not, I think anything out of fear is not always the best thing. I think you have to really make sure that it's right for you and what you want to do. So I'm Dr. Shabelta. I'm done speaking. That's our clubhouse thing.
I need a cocktail and I don't even drink. Okay. Wait a minute. I'm gonna have me some Mountain Dew. That's not. Oh my God. I'm over here taking notes on my phone because we're gonna circle back to all of this because I want to make some comments about something. What I'm seeing is a common thread here. Jaylene, are you able to talk?
Yes.
Say hi to the baby. You can let her wave to us. She want to wave.
I'm trying to keep her down so she can hopefully go back to sleep. So
Okay.
y'all please forgive me.
Okay, so I guess her bedtime thing didn't work out. So
and the devil's busy because she's normally takes her bedtime at 8 and she sleeps through the night, but she's fighting a little cold. So, and then being with Gigi and not with mommy. So for the minute. So, but
all right, so
I didn't want to give up the opportunity to hear these other survivors and to share as well.
Okay, go ahead, please.
And so I am Thaleen Evans, and my journey started in May of 2010. And it started with me going, I had been scheduled for 3 mammograms. And each time I went to have it done, they was canceled. So I developed an attitude and I said, you know what? I can give myself my own self exams. If I need one, I go get one. And I just refused to have one done. So I went on a routine doctor's visit for a follow-up for something else. And my doctor had noticed that I hadn't had my mammogram. So she asked me if I would like to schedule to have a mammogram done. And I told her no. And she asked me why. And I told her because I had 3 scheduled. And each time they had been canceled. And the last time they told me the machine wasn't working correctly. And I was like, I'm not going to get on a machine that's not working correctly. And I get squished and all. I was like, no, I refuse to have one done. So she was like, well, being that you work right upstairs from the lab, if I would schedule you an appointment, or if I could get you scheduled, would you go and have a mammogram done? She said, because you really need to have one done. And you know how hard it is to get an appointment. So I'm saying to myself, I said, yeah, if you can get me one, be my guest. I'll go get one done. I was at work. I went back to work, thinking I ain't worried about she won't get no appointment for me. So lo and behold, I wasn't at my desk a good 15, 20 minutes. And I got a phone call asking if I could come upstairs to have a mammogram done. I was like, are you serious? And they was like, yeah, doctor called in and wanted you to have your mammogram done. I was like, wow.
Like stat.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I go in and tell my boss, I need to go upstairs to have a mammogram done. Go upstairs, have the mammogram done. I tell them, I said, being that I work downstairs, can you all just call me with the results? I need to get dressed and go back to work. Okay. They said, sure, no problem. Big Jacqueline, when I tell you favor ain't fair, Dr. Favor ain't fair. So I go back downstairs. I'm sitting at my desk. About 30 minutes later, I get a phone call asking me if I could come back upstairs and have another mammogram done. I was like, are you serious? They was like, yes. So I said, okay, go back upstairs. And I was like, what was wrong with the first one? They was like, we're not really sure. We detected something, but we're not sure what we saw. We just want to have another one done. So I have another one done. And they was like, but this time you can't leave. I was like, okay. So we're trying to get through this. I sat there and I waited, and they was like, we need for you to go have a biopsy. And I was like, what? I was like, I've been giving myself breast exam, but I haven't felt anything. And they was like, well, we detected something. We're not sure what it is, but we would like to have a biopsy just to make sure. So I go and I have the biopsy done. All this within the 1 day time frame, all this working out. And I'm like, you know what is going on? So, still not thinking anything, because I had so many other medical issues going on. It didn't faze me really and truly. So I go over to have the biopsy done, and they're having a good time with the doctor and everything. And we're just laughing and talking about her pregnancy and stuff, and have the biopsy done. She comes back and I say, can you tell me what's going on? She say, no, I'm not supposed to. She said it has to be sent off to pathology, and then they would give you your report. She said, but it's something about you that I feel like I need to share. And I do want to let you know that we did see something, and the biopsy is going to show that it's malignant. You have breast cancer. I just sat there, at the word of cancer, and I feel myself to be a strong, faithful woman. That was all usually when you hear this word cancer, you hear nothing else after that. So I'm just sitting there, and she hands me some tissue. And I was like, what is this for? She said, baby, wipe your tears. It's going to be okay. I was crying and didn't even know it. And I was like, as
Okay,
most
I
people
need a
say,
drink, y'all. So
they what?
I need a drink.
I
I
was
don't
like,
even drink alcohol.
I
Oh
mean,
my
I was like,
God.
okay, Lord, I've been going through so much. Why me? And I was like, okay,
Well, is there a better time? Is that
okay. I was like, so what am I going to do? So I go out and I get on the phone. I come from a very close knit family. I get on the phone. I call my sister, and I said, I just come from the doctor. Where I had told her I was going to the doctor and all that. And she was like, okay, so what's the diagnosis? I say, we have to wait for the official report, but they say I have breast cancer. And she was like, whew, whew, whew. I was like, do not tell anybody. Do not call mama. Don't say anything. Let me be the one to break this. So I go back and I tell my boss, and he was like, do you need to go home? I said, what, going home? What is that going to do for me? No. I said, no, I'm going to say, I'm going to continue to work the rest of the day out, and I'm going to figure this thing out. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to tell my children, my daughter was a senior in college, getting ready to graduate, the week before all this is going down? How am I going to tell my mom? And I was like, but it has to be done. I felt nothing. I felt fine. And when it came back, I was stage 1. And that was on a Monday. The following Monday, I was going in for surgery. Like Jacqueline say, favorite, the best oncologist I had, everybody I had was the top of the line. And, my cousin always said, favor ain't fair. Favor ain't fair. We laugh about it. But, you think about it. When you're rooted and you're grounded in the Lord, he looks out for his children. He take care of them. And he give you the best because he's the best. And I told my family, and I never forget, and I tell the story all the time, and I know they probably get tired of me telling it because I come from a family of 8. And when I told my siblings, my baby brother said, you know what? If you got cancer, we all got cancer. And that right there touched me. Faith and family will get you through. Faith and family. You have to be able to, and you have to have that support team. Long story short, I went in and had the surgery, came out, at first they said they was going to do chemo. They did around the chemo, and then they did the radiation, did 12 weeks of radiation. And then I ended up on the chemo pill. I was on the chemo pill up until My 10th year, I was able to get. I had to be on the chemo pill for 10 years, and my journey wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. But to let people know, it's not always as bad as it seemed. When you hear cancer, you can get through it. Early detection is the key. I thank God for that doctor that he sent to me that day, because she was not the woman I was supposed to see. And she insisted that I have that mammogram done. And every time I see her and get the opportunity to thank her for being persistent and for getting me that appointment and for getting me and I mean, even down to the little doctor that did my biopsy, she said, I'm going to call in a favor for you. And she called in the head oncologist. That's how I got in so fast and stuff got to rolling. It was just amazing, amazing. I still have a little problem with the, not problems, but I go to therapy now for the lymph nodes and stuff, the swelling in my arms and everything. But I have a sleeve and I have a glove. But hey, I walk around with my sleeve. I got a sleeve. People be like, "Oh man, you got a tattoo?" I surely do. It's called cancer free. I sure do. It's called cancer free. I wear it proudly. I wear it proud. I wear it proud. I fought for that sleeve, and I wear it with pride. And I would tell anybody, do not be afraid. Have faith. And if you have a good support system in your family, you can get through anything. You can get through anything. And I think one of the things too is sharing your story. To share your story is a help. It's a help. Because other women need to know the battle and the struggle that you go through. I guess y'all can hear my little munchkin crying. But that's my story, and I'll give you the other part of it in a minute. But I thank you, Dr. Clarice. I thank you for the invitation of allowing us to share our story with you.
All right, thank you for coming. Take care of your baby. I'm gonna tell you guys something. This is, I personally think that God didn't allow me to have this panel 2 years ago or last year when I wanted it. I think the timing is everything, because you guys are the people that are supposed to be here. See, I didn't know B. Jacqueline last year. B. Jacqueline might not have known Dr. Chevelle to last year, or Thaleen. So this has been a divine intervention, because I'm going to tell you what I hear and see. What people need to hear from these stories is not just the perseverance, but following directions. We've got perseverance and we've got resistance, all in the same show. We've got perseverance and two people that are basically in the medical field, healthcare and medical field, and a person who works for the Harvard of the South, Duke, who was determined not to get a mammogram, which probably speaks to more of the people that look like us than all three of us put together. Do you understand what I'm saying? Thaleen is most of Black women in this I can't say world, but United States, because Thaleen is the person that is faced with, I'm not going, I don't have time, that machine was broke, I'm not doing this again. But her story didn't turn out like most stories. But what is the common? This is what I saw through this whole thing. You all are champions, you are warriors, you're survivors, but also the fact of how medicine has shifted. How it shifted. There used to be a day when your doctor called you in your office and said, can you come? Doctor wants you to come in and he wants to sit down and talk to you about something. Today, is this a good time to talk to you? What you doing? Oh, I'm driving. Oh, okay. Is this a good time? You got triple negative 555-33-111-655-44. How you feel right now? But don't you understand? I'm not making light of it. I'm saying Dr. Shavelta is a physician. The physician on the other end would have did the same thing to a non-physician. Dr. Shavelta is not only a physician, she's an OBGYN. She does breast exams for her patients. What about people that I got what? Huh? What? But what is the commonality here? All three of you all have outstanding health insurance. That's the thread. It's not just being the survivor. The thread is each one of you have amazing health insurance that gave you. My dissertation is on access. That's what I researched, access. Because we don't have access. And access is the key to business, to medicine, and everything. And each one of you guys had asked, yeah, you asked the right question. Yeah, you got second opinions, and some didn't. But what you had was access by having great insurance. How many of you have a PPO versus an HMO? Which
Yes.
one?
I have a PPO.
PPO. Okay. And I want you guys to not just hear their stories. When women tell me, well, girl, I got an HMO because I don't have to pay a copay. How much is your life worth? I'm sorry. Let me write it down while you're telling me, right? You cannot afford not to be in a PPO. You can't afford it because when there's that decision making, that the HMO is going to leave us out because it's about saving money. Each one of you guys fought. You fought. But your stories are so much greater than that because you persevered and you didn't give up. Even Miss Daylene, who was determined, she just wasn't going to get a mammogram. She didn't have the time. She needs to go back to work. She had something else to do. You really getting on her last nerves. Thank you. Was obedient. Because we talk about faith, but what's the number one thing in faith? Obedience. Obedience. We talk about faith, but it's the obedience that makes you the faith person. So I want, I'm just totally, I was looking for some tissue and I don't have any because I wanted to cry. But being the person I am, I don't want to mess up my makeup. I can't cry. I'm praying and
I'm sorry, you said something very key about access, and that is key because we are fortunate. We are three fortunate women, and there are so many women who don't have. If you're an entrepreneur, you may not have the right insurance. If you're not working right now, COVID took away a lot of access for people, not just in the fact that they couldn't get to their physician, or after a year, you're just like, I'm not going out in that, but because they may have lost their job or they may have lost benefits and whatnot. And access is truly important. I think Thaleen or Michelle, both of them were talking about this, but support and access is key in getting through breast cancer. I had and have a major
Yeah.
support system.
But
And
okay, so let's talk about, okay, so I set this up, but the shift. Where else can you get health access? From health clinics. Every city has free mammograms. Every city has community health centers. Dr. Chevelta, are you in Raleigh do them also? Now, where are you?
No, I just moved to Dallas last week from Houston, Texas. So I'm in Dallas now, northern
Okay,
Dallas.
and of course, you were in one of the best places of cancer, MD Anderson, in the world. In the world. You was in MD, you had MD. Did you go through MD Anderson with your treatment?
I did. I went through MD Anderson with my treatment. But I
If you
will
want to
say
know how I
this.
know all this, I'm former pharmaceuticals, 38 years. But I was in contracting and government. I was in a whole different thing where we dealt with the MD Andersons, the Sloan Ketterings, and things like that. But okay, go ahead. Yeah, that the Sloan Kettering, MD, but okay, but again, access. But every medical center, every single place has things for indigent people. You just have to understand how to get to it. And it ain't always easy.
and that's I was gonna say that's a big key piece. Access not just in the facility, but in what's available for you. And sometimes people you may have a good insurance, but you don't have the support, which is where like Thaleen is. She's a Pearl advocate for a organization here called the SISI Sisters Incorporating, Sisters Supporting Sisters Incorporated, where Terry Spicer is the founder of that, and they provide gas cards for people to get to their medical appointments. Because after you can go to the clinic, you can go to a mammogram, a mobile mammogram, but then what next? You get a mammogram, you get the thing, you get the report back. What are the next steps? There's so many intricate steps, and even in our space, the overwhelming part of it, the emotional and mental part of it, dealing with the big C. Once you get kind of past that, you do have that cycle of days up, days down, days up, days down. I don't want to take away from that, even though I said my journey was relatively certain things I didn't experience, but there are days I was just like, there's something killing me inside of me. There's those things you go through in your mind, but the access is also about health literacy, understanding what your doctor's telling you. I went through a 4.5 hour cancer education where we went through every drug, including Tylenol, anything that would go in my body. They went through that, what the possible side effects were. And a friend of mine who took me, she's like, my head's going to explode. I feel like I have cancer now. This is overwhelming. And she's very educated. So when you go through that, when you go through those things, is having that advocate there, someone there, or having access to someone who's going to help you understand, what did he just say? Because not every physician is going to talk to you in layman terms. Some of them they'll be talking about, you have this is going to attack this, and it's going. You're like, okay, I don't know what that means. What people don't know what metastasis means. What does that mean? It means it's gone from the initial location. It's the cells have moved somewhere else. It doesn't mean it's all over your body. It just means it's gone from that initial location. So Dr. Chevelta can also talk to this too about health literacy and how she talks to her patients and how she engages them. And then you have to take it another level. When you hear the word cancer, no matter how intelligent you are, because cancer is not, it's not, respective of social, economic, educational level, they don't care. It's going to hit
It's
anybody.
a non-discriminatory
Non-inflammatory disease. And so
disease.
when you hear that, studies have shown that people who are PhDs and physicians may hear the word cancer and their mind actually almost regresses back to a point that is not at the level of their credentials. So they're just like, well, what does that mean? They almost lose their cognition almost in that, because it's fear, and that kind of consternation can take you in different levels. So it's so many layers to deal with, getting to the physician, getting that access and getting that, but there's so many more steps after that. Because once you go to that mobile mammogram, who's going to help me who's going to provide a physician for me? I was, again, fortunate that my PCP set everything up. I've never had to make a medical appointment at all, ever. I've never had to find my appointments. I've never had to find my doctors, but I knew somebody else going through another system who had excellent health care, They had to find their oncologist, they had to find the surgeon, they had to find all the people because they didn't have referrals like that for some reason. I don't know. It just depends on, I guess, how they go through things. But access goes so much further than just getting to the actual appointment. It's the access of understanding what's happening to you and what could happen to you, not just in that moment, but down the road.
I think I'm frozen over here. Can you
Frozen.
all hear me?
I can hear you though. I can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can hear
yeah,
you.
I'm frozen. I don't know why I'm frozen, but I'm totally frozen. I don't know why. But I can hear you all. Go ahead. I'm just frozen in this position.
I think
No,
that's
I,
something.
I wanted to amplify a lot of what B. Jacqueline is saying is so true, and I think that's why it's so important. Oh, we lost her. Did we lose her, Dr. Clarice? Can you guys still hear me? Oh, okay. 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 So, but I think it's so important to realize that your voice matters. And it's going to be in some situations, if not many, that the activation of your voice, you speaking up for yourself, you being persistent, right? They may interpret it as, oh, this is a hard patient, this patient is being, but sometimes you have to say, I need you to help me find a doctor. I need you to do that. You know what I'm saying? You have to say that in the situation where B. Jacqueline was saying, once you get test results, okay, how do I get to the doctor? Many times the office will say, okay, well, you got to do this, you got to do that. And that may be the way it's supposed to go. But in activating your voice, I need help with that. I need a recommendation. I need someone to help me. Do you have a list of physicians that you regularly refer to? Do you have someone that you would recommend, and being able to activate your voice in that? Because and here's another thing I will say this. Even though I am a board certified OBGYN, I am not a breast surgeon. I am not an oncologist. So breast cancer to me was foreign. I don't treat it. I diagnose it, and people really, I don't even diagnose it. I'm telling them, right, the results of their path report. So for me, it was a very foreign thing because it was totally outside of my area of expertise. So I had to ask questions. I had to research. I was on Google. And when I was on Google, after Google, it was because I'm going back to the doctor and I'm saying, I found this on Google and it says X, Y, and Z. I need to know, what does that mean? So it is so important, whether it's cancer or any medical condition that you have, get a notebook. Take notes of things and questions that come up during the week. Take that into the office. Your physicians, make them listen. Now, I will say sometimes we have a high patient load. I'm speaking now from a physician. So sometimes what I tell my patients to do is I said, okay, listen, give me the 3 top concerns that you have today. Let's go through those 3 first. And then if we have more time, we'll go through the rest. If we can't get through everything today, I want you to make a follow-up appointment. Tell them that you need 2 slots, right? So that we can have time to go through it. And we sit down and we go through those concerns because it's important. The other thing I did at MD Anderson, now the state of Texas, it may be different than some states, is listen, they start talking to me, and sometimes my brain was like, just like BJ was saying, I was like, what did this? Oh, that just went way over my head. So I recorded every visit. Every visit, I recorded it. I said, I'm gonna record now. And I used my
Yes.
I use my phone.
Yep.
Because you got the memo app on it. And I hit it and then I said go. And then I let them say, whatever they're gonna say. And then now I had it to refer back to so that I could kind of remember what did they say, or if I couldn't remember something, then I would go through that. And so it's so important for you to realize that you have the right to get clarity. If your doctor is speaking in medical terms and not layman terms, and even if they're speaking in layman terms and you don't understand, then you need to say, I'm not following what you said, or I don't understand what you said. Can you explain that again? And they need to explain it until you get it. Okay? If you don't get it the second time, say it again. If you don't get it the third time, say it again. If you're visual, then you need to tell them, I'm visual. Can you write this out? Can you draw it? Can you help me? You know what I'm saying? Because everybody doesn't learn the same way, first of all. So physicians have to be willing to meet people where they are to help them to get to where they need to be. If you find that you are engaging with a doctor who's getting irritated, upset, uh, talking to you in a condescending manner, that's not your doctor. That's not the one for you. And you have the right to find somebody else. Like, I don't care whether you got Medicaid or what you got. You don't like that doctor, you got a right to find somebody else. You find somebody else who's par with your insurance. You have that right. And so these are the things that I think patients need to know. And unfortunately, I was at MD Anderson. I had a great experience with most of my doctors. I had an experience with one that I was not happy with. And I am taking it up the chain because I felt that I wasn't totally being heard. And I was frustrated with that. So it doesn't matter whether you have insurance or not. You can be a doctor and still be treated a particular way. The difference is that I know what to do. Oh, you're gonna act like that? Okay, we're gonna talk to patient relations. Okay, patient advocacy, risk management, whoever we need to talk to, dealing with who we. Oh, okay. Oh, y'all don't want to resolve it? Oh, okay. I know how to Google and find out who is the president of the hospital. Right? That's public knowledge. You can get on and you can find president of MD Anderson, president of Duke, president of Sloan. Right now, I always encourage people to try to go through the chain of command. But if you're going through that chain of command and you're not being heard, then go to the next and you can find that information. So your voice matters, and the squeaky wheel will get the oil.
Well,
We'll get the oil.
mhm.
And so these are the things that we need to know and ask the questions so that it's the knowledge that helps you to be able to navigate. And sometimes the access is because of lack of knowledge. Sometimes we just don't know how to access. We don't know where to come in, how to get into the system. We don't know when we need to pivot and go through this door. We just don't know. So it's important that we are talking to one another. And I thank you, Dr. Clarice, for having forums like this, because this is how people learn. We're giving information so that now you take it and then you need to give the information to Pookie, and you need to give it to your grandma and your mama, Gigi. You need to give the information so that as a community and as individuals, we're now all able to have better access because someone has shared the knowledge with us so that we can be able to do it. I'm Dr. Chevelton. I'm done speaking.
And thank you so much, Dr. Chevelta, because what you guys are saying here is paramount. It's crucial. You know, everyone who is here and listening or listening, it's recorded, so people can look at this at any time. I mean, is there a huge, just some kind of bubble when it comes to African American people and in the medical community? I mean, you're a physician, you're one of their own, and they're discounting you like you don't have a voice. So, do you think I mean, I'm not surprised, you know, but it's unfortunate. And there's still people that look like us and don't look like us that think that whatever the doctor says, that's what they don't
They
question
won't question
the
it.
doctor.
And
They don't
that's the
they
key.
don't say, is this my only option?
Right.
What they say is what the doctor said, and you say, well, what did you say?
Right.
The doctor said this. What did you say?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I
why
That's
didn't,
so
people have to
true.
I
know
didn't
your
want
body.
to
And
say
so,
nothing. I
yeah.
just didn't want to say nothing. I know he's busy.
I
We
think
have to
there's
get
just a
a
big,
different
it's a big
mindset.
gap in
It's
that
the
though.
truth.
It's a mindset. I think it's also like, people, we've been
Yes.
socialized like that. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of other and I think about the onions. I'll use myself as an example. I had blood in my urine for a while, and when my friend's dad, who used to be a nephrologist, he's retired. He goes, "It's probably a silent stone," and they weren't really, even these great physicians I have weren't seeming to hear me. I said, "I think it might be a stone." They're like, "No." So they had a plethora of tests that all come back negative. They tested for everything from multiple myeloma to lupus to everything, and everything came out negative. And then I got that kidney stone. They're like, "Oh, you were." I know my body. I know that wasn't any other stuff, and
Know
I
your
wasn't
body.
receiving any of the other stuff either. I rubber, you glue, it ain't happening. So, because I'm cancer free and I'm cancer resistant. How about that? It can't come back in any way, shape, or form in my body ever again to the end of the earth. Okay, so I already know that, and I declare that every day. But the other thing about that is the disparate treatment and things. Dr. Chabelt is she's a physician, but her wrapper is different. She got a chocolate wrapper, and it's just what it is. When I went
Yeah.
to this kidney thing, I had excellent my GFR, my global filtration rate was, my kidneys were great before I came into chemo. Then it went down kind of low, and as it affects the chemo drugs, it'll rebound. Well, it's rebounding, but like my physician, who is an African American woman, very intelligent, very learned, she and I were talking. She's like, I want to run. That's why she was running all these tests. She says, because this is a level, you're not in kidney failure, you're not that. I just want to make me run more tests that we're not putting you in that space. And as I was reading, it was giving me a different value. She goes, that is the value for African American. I said, well, when they get to that value, it's already too late. You're already in kidney failure. There's no point in a return. She goes, that's why I ignore that, because in some testing, not all of it, but some testing, Dr. Shavelta can speak to this, there are two levels. There's us and somebody else. They feel that we can take more pain, we can
Yeah.
take more brunt, we can take more whatever. And so you have to ask. And I learned to ask, even not just with her, but when I went to had my other labs and I was talked to like a nurse practitioner and stuff, I'm like, is this everybody's level or is this the African American level? Because I want to know, because I've already researched there too, and I already know the answer. I just want to see what you're going to tell me. But that's it. So again, access is to that knowledge and understanding that there are disparate treatment, not just because you're black, but because it's already innate in the system.
But,
So there's a lot of things. I mean, this needs a part 2, 3, 4, and 5.
There you
Yeah,
go.
definitely.
no, and we
Definitely.
can, and we can, and this is what I would love to do. I would love for, you got what I'm listening to all these acronyms that I certainly don't know, but I'm sure that there's women with breast cancer that don't know these acronyms. Do you understand me? I guarantee you, if we had a community forum somewhere and you start talking, because they just, again, what the doctor said. Well, what, and the recording, that's priceless. Look, everybody need to take the phone into the doctor's office to do a recording. Because we sit in there, we go, okay, okay. And then the other thing that's glaring that we don't talk enough about is that white women are diagnosed more
More.
with breast cancer, but African American women die. Their numbers are the highest. And I personally think, and now please expound on it, I personally think it's because early, early detection. That's the only cure for cancer. Is early. My mother had colon and lung cancer for 30 years and 1 month and never had chemo or radiation because my mother listened to her body. And she was a CA patient at UCLA. And she kept telling them something was wrong, and they kept telling her it wasn't. And she kept saying it is. And a little young resident, what they kept saying was hemorrhoids turned out to be, what her bleeding from the rectum turned out to be colon cancer. They could never resect, but my mother lived with a colostomy bag until she died, but she never had chemo or radiation. And with lung cancer, no chemo or radiation because early detection. That's all you have. That's your cure. Because of the gene changing, things changing so much, you're not going to ever have a cure. because you have too many different types going on and mutating and going this way. But what you do have is early detection. And what
If
I
I
would like, go ahead, no, go,
Oh, I'm
please.
so sorry. You touched on something when you were talking about your mom and the persistence that she had. They said everything's okay. She said no, something's wrong. And that's exactly what I mean about realizing that our voice matter. And if somebody is not listening to you, you push more. And if they still don't, then you go find somebody else. Because here's the deal, and I'm just gonna be real transparent. And I've said this before, even in our Pink Battalion, our Pink Battalion group. Doctors are human beings. You got great
Period.
doctors, and you
Mhm.
got some doctors that are average, and you got some that are not so good, right? And so you have doctors that really care about patients. They got into it, they love it, and that they're there to serve. And you have some that maybe they didn't get in for the right reason, just like people get into any job for maybe money or this or that, or maybe they got into it and they loved it, and now they're burnt out and they're feeling stressed and all of these different things that happen in medicine, and so they've lost the joy in it. And so you have to understand the importance of those things, because you don't always know who you're sitting in front of. So you've got to ask questions, you've got to be persistent. You when you show up to a doctor's office, the same way they're getting to know you and they taking a history, you need to get to know your doctor too, right? You need to, they talking to you about a procedure. Oh, okay. So can I just ask? I asked this question. I asked before they took me to surgery. So you've been doing this for a while. How long you been practicing? All right. How any major complications that you got as physicians? I'm
Yep.
just going to be honest. Most physicians, all of us, there's you can always have a complication with the surgery. You can be the best in the world and still have a complication. So that happens. But you want to know, how long have people doing? Are you comfortable? I'll ask, are you comfortable with this? There's certain things that sometimes you just want to get a feel for your doctor, because it needs to be trust, and there needs to be what we call a shared decision making, right?
Mhm.
Shared decision making means that we are talking together, and then we are deciding as a patient and a physician, what do you think works best? What would you like to
Mhm.
do based on all the information that's been provided, the risks and the benefits? What do you want to move forward with? This is my recommendation. What do you want to do? If you have a doctor who is forcing you, or like you feel very forced and very pressured, nope, shouldn't be doing that. That's against what we should be doing as providers. If you're not sure about something and you feel a doctor is saying, well, I think you should just go, nope, nope. You are supposed to be given ample time to think about something. I let my patients go home and think about it, and I tell them, okay, we make a follow-up appointment in 2 weeks. Come on back and let's talk about, what you want to do. If it's something that I need to talk to them sooner because it's more urgent, or something like that. Hey, I need you to come back in 2 days, and let's talk about this, and let's see where you are. And I'll be honest, I've had some patients who have said no, they're not going to do something that to me, I'm just like, ah. But I have to respect that. Why? Because it should be shared decision making, not just what Dr. Smith wants you to do. I can counsel you and all that, but patients have a right. People have a right to do what they want to do, as long as they understand. They have to be informed, and sometimes they're not always being informed the way we should be informed. And so you have to press, you have to ask questions, you have to stop taking everything for face value that everybody tells you, because you don't know if that's a doctor who is caring for you. We have higher death rates, one, because low access, and a lot of that can be because we don't have money or we don't have insurance. Two, because we're not educated in terms of, when I say educated, I don't mean in terms of schooling, I mean in terms of information. We don't always get it, so we don't always know what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be screening. At the other times, you have some that are doing all the right things, but they may not be sitting in front of a provider that really is caring about them, counseling them appropriately, right? And they don't know that because they just take it for face value. And so sometimes there's a variety of things, and then you may have some that they have great doctors, but maybe they didn't make it in time, or maybe they, things progress too quickly, and so the doctor did all that they can, right? Because there are great doctors out there. Many of us are. And so we just have to be clear as individuals, as black and brown, right? We have to own and take control of our health.
Yes.
And it's not just cancer that we don't do that in. We don't do that with anything. We got diabetics eating cake, ice cream. That's a whole nother topic of discussion, right? We got hypertensive patients, people all y'all on a whole lot of blood pressure medications, but you're still eating all the wrong food because you don't want to make the sacrifices that are necessary for you to have longevity of life. And it's not fair because at the end of the day, it's your children who are usually taking care of you and have that burden to do that. So we have to we have to value ourselves. That's a whole nother thing. We're not valuing ourselves as black and brown people. We're not loving ourselves. We're not caring for ourselves. And so until we do that, then we will have a different outcome, because when you value yourself, you're going to push somebody about information because you want to make sure ain't nobody, like B. Jacqueline said, oh, ain't nobody going to touch this body unless, you know what I'm saying? Because this valuable body. So I'm praying for every tech, every whatever. We have to see ourselves as worthy and valued. And sometimes, unfortunately, we haven't always had those experiences in life that have made us feel worthy and deserving. So we just take whatever people give us, whatever people say to us, and sometimes it's not always the best. I'm Dr. Shabelton, I'm done speaking.
I want to say real quickly to kind of follow what she said. You were talking about access, and you're talking about the incidence of breast cancer. What with Dr. Chavelta, she doesn't have it. She was diagnosed with TNBC because it's gone, and that affects Black women disproportionately. But there needs to be more research as to why, and we don't have that. And a lot of times we don't. Part of our healthcare is exploring all avenues, and sometimes a clinical trial might be it. But I think also those layers, the mindset, the thing. What about the Tuskegee? That was a gabillion years ago. Let's let Tuskegee experiment die. Let's let that die and go, because that's killing us. That ignorance and that continued, not ignorance, that continued fear that's been replicated, that's we're going to be a guinea pig, is is killing us because we don't present to certain things. So we don't have enough research, we don't have enough data on to be able to effectively treat certain conditions, not just triple negative breast cancer, but that disproportionately affects Black women. But there's not enough of data material to know what the best treatments are, or to even create a treatment, or to know why it does that. Just in, I'll use Asian, some of my researchers, it was a thing called the P450 cytochrome. There are certain things that they are very sensitive to, and they were taking certain medications and certain things, and it was killing them. And they were like, "What's happening?" Well, they don't metabolize certain things, right? So now there's more research about that. So now they know what drugs they can and cannot take. We are not going to, until we really educate ourselves as well, and take off the veil and take off the whole thing of, well, that happened to my grandmother, and this happened, and I can't do that. Medical science has advanced a lot, and it's even more regulated since the Tuskegee experiment. That was a moment in time that did happen. It was unfortunate, but we got to move past that, because staying crouched in that mindset is killing us in a lot of ways. And as Dr. Chavelta said, we have to take accountability for our own lives. You can't be eating pig feet and you got high blood pressure. You can't be saying, "Lord, him with high blood pressure." He's like, you counteracting your prayers. So we have to take accountability and just grow up in that space. My grandmother, she ate pig feet all the time. She lived a long time. Well, life was different then. This is 2022. So it's a totally different step. But my whole thing in that is that we have to explore all avenues, because there are sound clinical research programs out there that no, you're not going to get the sugar pill. You're not going to have cancer. They don't treat you. You're taking the same drugs you take if you were in a chemo series. It's just looking at it in a different way and collecting more data to provide more substantial medical science behind the actual disease itself for you and for your population. Because you look at the data and it spans, we present very little. It's like 1% to 2%. There's a push by FDA not to kill us, but to gain the information that you have to have more diversity in clinical trials, and for your drug to even be considered to be approved. So we have to be able to also lend to our own longevity.
Well,
This
What?
is true
Go
because,
ahead, Jack. Go ahead, Daylene. Go
yeah,
ahead.
like they were saying, it has been reported that, 1 in 10 women that get their annual mammogram screening is black. 1 in 10, you know, and I mean, and like we've all heard that 41% of um, more are more likely to die from breast cancer than white women, you know, and it's known fact that black women are more likely to be diagnosed with aggressive and later stage of breast cancer than white women. We need to change that number. Like you say, we need to be more involved in these clinical studies. I mean, like you said with Tuskegee, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. We got to let fear go. We got to stop. We got to choose hope and not fear. God did not give us the sense of fear. Together, we can make a difference. And we need to come together. Like you say, our voices need to be heard. We need to get more involved in these clinical researches and these clinical studies that are out there. Early detection, I keep saying it again and again, is the key. It is the key.
I'm going to share something with you guys. I mean, uh, we need to learn to turn our fear into fearless and turn that fearless into fabulous. Because you know why? Because fear is killing us. Fear is killing us. I don't know if you know this Dr. Shavelta, or any guys. Are you familiar with Oral Lee Smith Cancer Research Foundation? She's an African American woman, Dr. Hadisha Nicole Green. I've been trying to get her on my show for 2 years, and she hasn't come on. But she's doing, I will give you her information. After we get off, don't go off. I'm going to give you all her information. She is doing state of the art research just on African American women. So why don't you guys know about it? You see what I mean? Sharing information. Sharing information. I found out about it because a friend of mine, one of my dearest friends, best friends, has breast cancer, and she knows this woman, and I was trying to get. I wrote letters and tried to get her to come on the show for a couple of years, but this is a woman you all should know. The Oral Lee Smith Foundation is because her mother is Oral Lee Smith, and she died of breast cancer. And her daughter, it might be her daughter or granddaughter, Dr. Hadia Nicole Green, uh, started a research, and she's doing some type of treatment for breast cancer that is state of the art, like plant based treatment without all the chemicals. I'm kind of but we need, this is the kind of information. Maybe this is why I'm here to share that, for you guys to partner with her to get her to be more vocal about what she's doing. She raises money for research, but again, your networks, your access, who are your who are your corporate partners? Who are your advocates? How do you make this happen? That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And it's things like this that I try to provide to get the word out, because every time we share, there's somebody, we didn't get into. Tomorrow I'm having a surgical oncologist on, one of my sorority sisters, Dr. C. Susan Cutter. She comes on every year and she talks about options, both medical options and holistic options of treating breast cancer. You know, but these are all the things that we need to have, not even once a year. You guys have an open invitation. Anytime you want to come on to talk about something, just let me know. I don't charge. You know, let me know. I pay for the marketing on Instagram and on Facebook. You know, let me know. Because bottom line is, this should not be, breast cancer is not in October. it's January, it's just December. We need to continually, Dr. Shavelta, what is it? The squeaky wheel gets what? But wow, I volunteered to be in a COVID-19 clinical trial in May of 2020 through UCLA. I didn't tell anybody. And when my kids found out, they were like, why would you do that? That's crazy. Well, they needed black people. They needed black people. How are they going to see how this vaccine works in black people if nobody black volunteered? I volunteered. I wrote the CDC and told them that I was willing to be a volunteer. And I have a vaccine that didn't even come to the United States. I have AstraZeneca. I don't even have any of the Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, or Pfizer. I have Pfizer boosters. But my point is, we've got to share information. You know, I have this podcast, The Pain of Change, because it's about sharing information. It's about helping other people. So you guys, anytime, come back. Share your stories. Bring a friend. Share your stories because it's about survival. I wish I applaud you guys and I thank you because most black women do not want to share their stories. Like even Dr. Shavelta said, well, how public do I need? How public? Like this much public, this much public, right? And it's not, I don't think it's embarrassment. I think it's fear because if you say it, then it makes it real. That makes it like, wow. But in the same vein, psychologically and cognitively, it also takes some of the power out of it when you share it. It's good. It's like, when you confess something that you've been holding in, and you tell it, and you hope another person accepts whatever you get ready to say. Now, they may feel bad, but you feel pretty good, right? So, please come back. I want to thank you guys. Who wants to take us out of here? We can go out with prayer. We can go out with final thoughts. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot there's people watching. I can't see. First of all, I just want to thank everybody that has joined us tonight. I cannot see everyone. I'm sorry, I only see some comments, but I'm going to just thank the people that I see. My sister friend who's the sister of my best friend who we lost during COVID, Victoria Bradford, who is also a cancer survivor. So Victoria, who is in Kansas, I believe, thank you. Claire Dorsey, thank you for joining us. I see you, big Jacqueline Jeter on here. Alfred Perry, thank you for joining us. Arlette's sister Marie Boatwright, thank you. My personal shopper and person that keeps me together, my stylist, Rosalind Rosh, thank you as always, Rosalind. Arlette brother, Gene Baker, thank you, Gene. I thank everybody who joined us. These are just the people I can see. I know there's a lot. Rhea Harris, thank you for joining us. Thank you, guys. So, people just making, ladies, thanks for sharing your journey. I'll put this up really zip. Can you see this? Ladies, thanks for sharing your journey through breast cancer. Thank God. I think I got you back. Thank God for all of you. And Vicki was saying favors not fair. Oh, and someone was saying Dr. Sam Price is amazing. I don't know who Dr. Sam Price is, but maybe that was somebody.
That's my licensed integrative physician. I mean,
It's a
I'm sorry, my licensed
Naturopath.
naturopathic physician.
oh wow.
I had mentioned her earlier.
Okay, her name is Sam Price. Okay, it's a woman, Samantha. Okay. So anyway, but thank everybody for joining us, and I really appreciate it. Please, let's do this again. You know, let's talk about, you know, the importance of even changing your diet once you're diagnosed with breast cancer or any kind of cancer. The importance of changing your diet, your lifestyle. Um, you know, we're a group, we're a race of people that are still dying from things that other ethnicities are not dying from anymore, like high blood pressure, diabetes runs rampant in our gene pool, in our lifestyle. You know, when you talk about obesity, you know, we had touched on the fact of how obesity is linked to breast cancer. So that's another reason why there's so many more African American women because of our size. So it's never too late. We're never too old, and we can't give up. We got to just keep stressing for betterment. So, B. Jacqueline, would you like to say something as we leave here? Each one of
Um, it's kind of late for us, so I'm going to make this really quick. Just thank you for having us on here and having this discussion. I do look forward for us coming back together very soon because breast cancer is not just in October. It's we live with it daily, and so and so do many other women. So thank you so much for having us on, and thank you, Thaleen and Dr. Chevelta, for being able to join us. As Dr. Clarice said, this has been a divine connection and divine arrangement. Um, and so just thank you. I just want to say thank you for this. And thank you for those who tuned in because the support is important. So as you support us, support others who are going through this as well.
Is there any websites or anything that anybody wants to give me that I can put up before we go? Anybody
If,
have anything they want to?
if someone has a diagnosis of cancer and they're looking for a faith-based group, for prayer, for encouragement, inspiration, they can find Boots on the Ground, Pink Battalion on Facebook.
What's it called?
Boots on the Ground,
Boots on the
Pink,
ground.
Pink Battalion.
Boots on the ground. In Pink Battalion.
Boots on the Ground, Pink Battalion.
Oh, Pink Battalion. Oh, look at that. That's awesomeness. Okay. Oh, Boots on the ground, Pink Battalion. All right. So we got that. Boots. Oh, it's supposed to be showing.
There's the link in our private chat. So you can just copy it and put it in the other one.
What's the name of it?
If you go to our private chat, I put the link in that. You can copy it and put it in the main one.
Oh, okay. In the private. I didn't even know I had a private chat. Okay, so I did. I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm gonna copy this link, and then you did find Oralee,
Yes.
and I'm gonna try to get her to connect with people. I know that my friend Sheila Agnew McCoy is very good friends with her, and hopefully she would tell her about this podcast um, and connect with you guys. I mean, it's really a good group, and people need to know. I mean, and people need to tell their stories. They need to use their voice. It makes you feel better, and it's a support. You know, I know that I've had a couple of scares, but nothing. You know, they found something in my breast, and I went on vacation, and my doctor was like, "Where have you been?" I said, "I went on vacation." And she called somebody in, and it was something in my nipple, in situ something inside a ductal in situ something. She called somebody in. She said,
NCIS.
"You're not, what's it called? Inductal in situ something, right?"
Dental cancer in situ.
Okay, so she called somebody in. I said, well, I don't have time to do it right now, Daylene. I don't have time to do it right now because I got to go up to UCLA. She said, you're not going anywhere. Called somebody in. She took something like a tweezer and went in, numbed my breast, pulled something out and put it into a little thing. Pulled a thing out about this big out of my duct and my nipple. But luckily it came back benign. But it didn't have to. And I've been walking around with it. I went on vacation for 3 weeks.
Wow. Wow.
So I mean, we just don't. I don't know. We don't listen. So anyway, all right, ladies. It is. Oh, it's
Yeah. We've been
11:12 there.
good
All
night,
right,
Dr. Shelton.
nighty night. Okay, so talk to you soon. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're
And good
welcome.